is basically, so human beings, they always learn in the spiral fashion. This is what the principle of spiral development states. It states that when we give something new, some new content, or try to teach a skill which is new to the learner will try to grasp it and move in the upward direction. But then this movement is not linear, it will always happen gradually and slowly. And we can see that this movement of this direction of the arrow is towards the upward direction, though not in a very straight line, but then the net direction is upwards. But as the learner proceeds to learn, master that content that we are trying to teach the learner takes a backward or a U-turn. This means that there's always some time that the learner spends in consolidating that knowledge, in revising that knowledge, or maybe this is the period where the learner is facing some difficulty, needs help, needs revision, needs mentoring, needs coaching, needs teaching, needs tuition, or whatever. And then maybe the learner is also spending some time with himself or herself in consolidating that new information or new skill. And then finally, here when the learner takes a U-turn, and then when finally goes in the upward direction, this all part has been mastered. Again, when the new content is being presented to the learner, again the learner does the same thing. The learner is grasping new content, is moving towards B, because ultimately B is the point where the learner wants to reach, or we want the learners to reach. So again, in the second step, when the learner is encountered with new content or new knowledge, again the same thing happens. The net direction is upward, but of course not in a straight line, and the learner is again trying to move upwards, but in this process forgets, relearns, receives some help, maybe tries to consolidate that knowledge again, requires mentoring, and then finally after this stage of this part is where the learner faces difficulty or may require help, or maybe spending time in consolidating those ideas. And then finally when it moves again in the upward direction, all that part which lies below this arrow has been mastered completely and does not require any revisiting. Again, when the learner goes to the third step, the content that has already been learned is mastered, and portions of that new content which were not mastered again follow this spiral path. So basically, whatever new is being given to the learner is undergoing a process of learning, relearning, getting back to a stage where everything is forgotten or requires some help or requires some mentoring, and then again mastering it, and finally mastering it and moving on to the higher step. So this is how the learning is taking place. So summing it up, I would say that learning would never happen from A to B in a straight line. It is always going to follow a spiral direction in which there are several stages of learning, forgetting, relearning, mastering, and then finally moving upwards. So this is what is the spiral development, and we all learn in this fashion. So what is the educational implication of this principle of spiral development? Well, the educational implication here is that whenever you present anything new to a child, remember that the child will not immediately master it. Maybe at times you will feel that the child has understood, the child is presenting the content, is using that content, but it's very natural that the next day the child may forget it. And the child may require a revision or some guidance, or the child may require to spend some time with himself or herself in consolidating those ideas. Maybe some audios, maybe some external cues will be needed by the child in order to consolidate. But then once it happens and the child finally takes a U-turn and again an upward turn, the content has been learned. So always as a teacher, give that part, give this time to the child to master the content. This is what the principle of spiral development says and means to us. Thank you.